Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight to hang out with Vivian Howard and Anderson's Bookshop. We are thrilled to have Vivian back. Vivian's been to Anderson's before. We are so thrilled to have her back. I am going to ask that everyone keep their cameras and their microphones off for the presentation. So if you guys wouldn't mind keeping those off, that'd be great. All right. We're doing a few other technical things while I'm talking to you, so forgive me for a second. I want to make sure I get everybody admitted in. Okay, like I said, welcome for being here tonight. I am Carrie. I am from Anderson's Bookshop. I work with the events team here. Just a little bit of history about Anderson's if you've never been with us before. The Anderson's family has actually been selling books independently since 1875. That's something we're very proud of. And on behalf of all of them, I want to thank you because your support of Anderson's through the purchase of the book being featured here tonight is very personal to us. It's just not a great year to be a small business. And we have never been more grateful for every person who makes the decision to support their local economy by buying from a local independent business like ours. It really makes a difference. Couple of things before we get started about tonight and how the event is going to work. Like I mentioned, your camera and microphones are off, and we ask that you keep them off for the duration of the event. Vivian will be speaking and doing a cooking demo with you tonight that you're welcome to be doing at home along as you guys go along. Please feel free to ask questions using the chat feature. Just type them into the chat here on the event. And then I will pop back on at the end of the demonstration, the cooking demonstration. I'll pick a few of those questions depending how much time we have, and we'll see how many of them we can get through and get done before we have to end our event. Your ticket tonight included a copy of this book, but if you would like additional copies or Vivian's other book, I will be putting links to those in the chat as well. They make great gifts. I always feel like signed books make great gifts. So just keep that in mind as we're going along. All right, but now let's welcome back to Anderson's, the one and only Vivian Howard. Vivian is the New York Times bestselling author of Deep Run Roots, which was named Cookbook of the Year by the International Association of Culinary Professionals. She co-created and stars in the award-winning public television shows Somewhere South and A Chef's Life. And because she must just be a master multitasker, she also just runs 4 restaurants, and that is absolutely amazing to me. So with no further ado, please welcome Vivian Howard.
Thank you so much. Yes, I am a multitasker, but really probably more of a multi-disaster kind of gal. But I do keep the people that choose to be with me very busy. So thank you all so much for signing up for this virtual event and for supporting Anderson's. I too very much understand and can relate to the fact that being a small business during this time is really challenging. So whenever you can support your small businesses like Anderson's or like independently owned restaurants in your community, please do it. You're going to appreciate the fact that you did on the other side of this, because we're going to want like spunk and personality, and we're going to need that from small businesses. So, okay, so tonight we are talking about my new book. This will make it taste good. I am most known for A Chef's Life, and this will make and Deep Run Roots, and both of those things are so important to me. They've given me the platform to do this, and I just did these in-person book events this past weekend, which were like drive-through events where people come through and I stand outside with a mask on and we take a picture and they get their signed book. And nearly 50% of people who came through the line were like, nearly half of them had a copy of Deep Run Roots, my first book, in their car. And they're like, oh my God, I love this book so much. I hope this one is just like it. Well, it is not. And I'm so proud of the fact that it's not. I love Deep Run Roots. I look at it very much as a historical text. But this is very much more the way that I cook at home. and a more honest interpretation of my personality. So This Will Make It Taste Good stems from the fact that when after Deep Run Roots came out, every morning for a year, I woke up and read the new reviews on Amazon about Deep Run Roots and what people liked and didn't like about it. And one of the trends that came through all the time was they wanted more simple recipes. So I set out to write a simple cookbook, and I started doing it, and I developed a ton of recipes and wrote the entire table of contents. But I was just so unhappy with what I was doing. Like, the recipes tasted good, but they were just kind of boring. There was none of me in it. And at the end of that table of contents, there was a chapter called This Will Make It Taste Good. And there was a chapter full of all of these flavor heroes, these recipes that are not hard to make at all, that I use, that I started making in my restaurant, and then I took to my home kitchen. And I use them to make really simple food exciting at home. So there are 10 chapters in this book, and each of those chapters is about one of these flavor heroes. And this is a novel way to create a cookbook. And so I've created everything in here around that novel idea, in that almost nothing has the name that you would expect. I have taken my flavor heroes and given, sorry, I've got a kale bookmark right there. I've taken my flavor heroes and given them personalities of their own and names. So this one is called Little Green Dress, and it's basically like a chimichurri and a salsa verde had a baby in a bed of olives. And so I tell you how to make it. It's very simple. And then I write kind of a story about how it functions in your kitchen, what you can do with it, and how it came to be. And then this is the really interesting thing about this book. One of them is that in every chapter, there's a portrait of me that personifies the personality of this flavor hero. So in so many ways, this is a cookbook that is outside the box of cookbooks that you expect. So we've got our story about how the flavor hero came to be in every chapter, and then we have the recipe for it, as well as a bunch of no-brainer ways to use it. So things that are not recipes at all, like Little Green Dress, the salsa verde chimichurri baby with a bed of olives, becomes something that you can serve on scrambled eggs or omelets. It's delicious stirred into chicken or potato salad. It's amazing as a topping for roast chicken. These are all things that are just obvious. And then following that, within that chapter, there are 10 recipes of ways to use that one ingredient. So for me, this book is about a different type of meal prep, a different way to organize your kitchen. And I think it's really the way that a lot of chefs organize their kitchens at home, because we all have these things we turn to in our professional kitchens to make like simple ingredients come together in a way that is really flavorful. So tonight, we're going to talk about one of my favorite flavor heroes, and it's called Community Organizer. So the name for each flavor hero really comes from the things, the ways that it, I use it in food. So Community Organizer is kind of dedicated to one of my favorite presidents of all time, President Barack Obama, and the fact that, he began, or he was first called a community organizer, and he was not necessarily the star, but he looked around his community to make things their best selves. And so we have an ingredient kind of that does that. I'm not minimalizing Barack Obama in any way, rather celebrating him. So Community Organizer is a blend of onions, garlic, tomatoes, peppers, all stewed down in the style of kind of like a sofrito, but with a few southern attributes, like a little bit of brown sugar and a little bit of cider vinegar that make it this round thing that you can add to a number of dishes to make them really exciting. So the idea is to make community organizer in advance and then use it all throughout the week or the month at dinner to make things very exciting. So all of, oh, hold on one second. All of the flavor heroes in this book kind of originated in different ways. And this one came to me about 4 years ago after A Chef's Life started. And I started getting all of these gifts in the mail that people had canned and preserved, all sorts of things, because they believed that I was someone who might love this sort of gift. And I got everything from, you know, peach preserves to rutabaga chow chow to something called pea helper. So I get this jar and it's called pea helper. It says, my family loves pea helper. We stir it into every pot of peas that we make. And I thought, this sounds incredibly strange, but I was curious enough to open it. And I cooked a pot of peas. I stirred this pea helper into the pot of peas, and I thought, oh my God, this is a revelation. It is like, you know, if hamburger helper were natural and flavorful and made of vegetables, then this would be what hamburger helper would be. So I used half a jar, and then I used the other half to kind of figure out what the recipe for this pea helper was. And I came up with this combination of stewed down onions, garlic, tomato, peppers, then added sugar and vinegar to make it like have all the flavors of like Southern food that we expect. And it's become a huge part of the way that I build flavor in my home kitchen as well as a restaurant kitchen. So tonight we're going to work with community organizer, because the attributes of community organizer are that they it never stands like outside the lines, you know, it brings everything together and has the ability to make all the ingredients that you're trying to highlight be their best selves. So tonight we're going to do two things with community organizer that I think will show you how easy it is to use this book. One of which is for one of my goals for these virtual events is to like look around the kitchen that I have here. This is my test kitchen. It's 2 blocks from my restaurant. It's about 30 minutes from my home, and just use the things that I already have here with my flavor heroes rather than going out and shopping. Because I think that's the point of cooking at home right now. It's like, you know, every trip to the grocery store is something that none of us look forward to. COVID or pre-COVID, honestly, for me. And so I had a can of garbanzo beans and a can of black-eyed peas. And so I've taken both of those, drained them, added a little bit of water, simmered it for about 10 minutes. And now I'm gonna add about 1 cup of community organizer to it, a little bit more water, because I let it cook out as I was talking. And I'm gonna bring that to a simmer for about 5 minutes, and then shave a little Parmigiano Reggiano over top. And you have something that tastes incredibly complex that took, you know, very little time to make if you take the time to make the community organizer. So my idea for this book is that if you invest the energy and which is minimal, by the way. But if you just invest the thought process into making one or two of the flavor heroes, and this will make it taste good, on, let's say, Sunday night, when you could be doing, traditional meal prep, which is, roasting Brussels sprouts that then you'll reheat on Wednesday. That will be worse than they were the first time. Or reheating grilled chicken that you probably overcooked on Sunday, in an effort to get ahead for the week. If you were to make the flavor heroes and then throw them together with quick to cook ingredients, such as this, during the week, then you would end up with like exciting food that is really simple to put together and it has a ton of personality. So I'm gonna simmer my canned chickpeas or garbanzo beans and my canned black-eyed peas. I can't believe, because this is how I actually cook. When you work at a restaurant or your work involves, testing recipes and cooking for people in large quantities, like you don't go home and want to cook a whole lot. I actually wouldn't mind cooking a whole lot. I just don't like washing a lot of dishes. So that's the reason that things like the community organizer or the little green dress or the sweet potential, all of the chapters in this book make sense for home cooks in a way that they can organize their kitchens to be more efficient and more empowering, frankly, for all of us. So I'm simmering this together. It's going slower than I thought. But once I got this to a good bubble, my goal is to take some of this Parmesan rind, which I actually have here at my office, not because I was planning on grating it for Parmesan, but because I like to use the rinds for a lot of different broths and ways to enliven dishes without adding meat. So what I found is that with every Parmesan rind, there's a little bit of Parmesan. So if I were to serve this to my family right now, my children who happen to love community organizer, blended with a lot of different things, I would stew this for about 3 to 5 minutes and then grate a huge shower of this parm on top of that and go to town, put it on the table. There's almost nothing easier and more, I would say, more satisfying and also time versus reward oriented. So this is great. Another thing I'm going to show you that you can do with Community Organizer, of course, like with every flavor hero in the book, there are 10 recipes associated with how to use that flavor hero. So another option that I'm going to point out is something that I like to do for dinner a lot, because I love bread. I wish I didn't love bread, but I love bread and I love cheese on bread, which means I guess I love pizza. So I love to take leftover sourdough, or I just bought this from the grocery store maybe a week ago. It's in my fridge, so it's not great for anything fresh, but it's great if you toast it in a pan. So I cut a nice thick slice of this and toast it in a pan with olive oil, and then put whatever cheese I have at home on top of it and melt it in the oven. Okay, let's see what happens. I hope it hasn't been melting too long. All right, look. This is some beautiful cheesy toast that I'm then going to use my saute pan. I have some olive oil in here. I'm going to take some kale straight from the bag and wilt this kale in my olive oil. And then the only thing I'm going to do to this kale is add about 2/3 of a cup of community organizer. And it's going to taste like something that I have developed and designed and cooked for far longer than I'm going to spend time on it. And I'm going to have like a dish that I would be happy to serve any food enthusiast that came over to my house. So I hope that we're going to probably talk while this cooks down, but I hope that this kind of explains to you the way that the flavor heroes that this book is about, the way that they can function in your kitchen. You know, I think that Community Organizer is inspired by both the pea helper I mentioned before, but also ketchup. And I had to whisper that because someone like me should not be a fan of ketchup, but ketchup is, something that we consider to be very American, although its origins are in China, but that's okay. And so Community Organizer speaks to a lot of the notes that ketchup speaks to: tomato and sugar and vinegar. And I always grew up eating eggs with ketchup. So I automatically think of Community Organizer with eggs of all kinds. So I want this to cook faster, and it's not. So I wonder if there are any questions coming through. I see things popping up. I don't know.
Hi, here I am. Yeah, we've got a couple. Let me see. Let me pick a few. Somebody said, what other piece of meat instead of lamb could you use the herb? I'm never going to say this right. Herbicious on? Does that make sense?
I mean, you could marinate the any piece of meat with the herbaceous. I mean, a chicken, a whole chicken would be great, rubbed in it like overnight and then roasted. You could rub it on a piece of beef before you roast it, or actually drizzle it on afterward. The point of all of these is that they are incredibly versatile. And when you're writing a cookbook, it's like you want to try and include, at least for me, like a number of different proteins over the course of the book. So I paired herbaceous with lamb because that was the one time lamb appeared in the book. It doesn't mean it's the only place that it works. So the idea for the book and for the heroes is to show how versatile they are with so many different ingredients. So I wouldn't look at the recipes in here as like, oh, this is the only thing I can do. What I want you to do is expand your mind to all the possibilities of things that will work with these very pronounced, just like flavor vehicles. Because that's the way that I cook, and that's the way that I think that home cooks can be empowered to cook without recipes.
All right. Great answer. Okay, we have another one. This is from Ed. He says, during your first virtual cook-along, you answered my question about what you could use as a substitute, if anything, for vinegar if you have a vinegar-averse spouse. You said citrus could be used. Could you please expand on that? Can any citrus be used? Should different citrus like lemon, lime, grapefruit, etc. be used based on the different vinegars, white, red wine, rice wine, etc.? Should citrus be used in the same proportion as the called for vinegar at a 1-to-1 ratio?
I just want to say, this is from my friend Ed Terry.
It is.
Who's like my biggest supporter, and he sees that I'm struggling tonight. And so he's here to ask a question. I thank you so much. Ed calls himself my, he says, I love Vivian Howard and my wife knows it. And so thank you, you're helping me. Oh my God. Ed, you know what? I've told you a million times what kind of acid you use. So you're, So you can use, I would ask you to ask the question again, but I don't think I can endure it. Lemon juice is, I think, the most forward acid without the most expression. So when you start incorporating something like lime or orange, you incorporate flavors that I think are more pronounced. So, Ed, stick with the lemon and DM me. Don't do this on social media because I'm emotional these days.
Aren't we all? It's a rough time. Okay, I've got another question here. And then I have a couple. My favorite thing about when we have cookbook authors on is a lot of times in the comments, people start making suggestions about the recipes that they've made and what they do with them. And so I'll get to a couple of those in a minute because I love that. But here's one more question for you. Will you be selling any of these flavor heroes by mail like you did with the earlier handy and hot box that you did this spring?
I sure as hell hope so. But just to speak about, we all say this is such a challenging time. COVID is so hard. Like as a restaurateur, it's so hard. And you know what? I think that we share these like platitudes about what the moment means, but we don't really understand what it means. And so, I am getting ready to reopen Chef and the Farmer this weekend, and I've been able to rehire about 4 cooks. So I'm going to become, Ed, you should come to Chef and the Farmer in the short term because I'm going to be, a line cook there. And so in order to produce these things, to ship out, we have to have people to do it. We have to have the means and the investment to do it. And it's very hard to connect all the dots right now. I'm not saying that I'm not hopeful that we'll be able to moving forward, but this moment presents a lot of challenges, and I feel a great responsibility to Kinston, North Carolina, and Chef and the Farmer, and so I'm doing everything I can to reopen it, even if it's possibly not the best thing for me personally. And so to answer your question, I would love nothing more than to be able to sell all of these flavor heroes. I think that if you could buy them readily, it would be such a great means to making dinner fast and fabulous. But I can't do it right now. Can somebody clone me?
We can really relate to that at the bookshop. There's nothing more frustrating at this very bizarre moment we're in right now than seeing opportunities and not being able to seize them, like very needed opportunities and not being able to seize them because of the limitations that this moment has put on all of us. I really can relate to that. It's so frustrating. But I keep hoping it's all going to get better soon. Let's see. Okay, we got a couple more questions that came in, and then we'll get to those suggestions if we have time at the end. What sort of fish do you recommend as a good any situation fish?
Okay, so that's a great question for me. Never tilapia. I think tilapia is always available and nearly every supermarket, but you have no idea where it came from. Have really no idea how it was raised. I would argue that farm-raised catfish is a great solution and a mildly flavored fish that is always available, and if it's grown or raised in the States is a sustainable option. And I always want people to cook more fish at home, but the opportunities and our understanding of doing it is really limited. And so I would say American raised catfish, and I would also say any little fish that you can cook. And I know that's not a popular answer, but little fish are better for our planet. They are better for our bodies. And so when I say little fish, I mean things like anchovies or sardines, mackerel. And I know that that's not the answer you're looking for, but I do have to use this opportunity to put that out there.
Actually, I was going to ask you, do you mind expounding on why you said no tilapia actually a little bit more? Because I actually didn't know what you said, and tilapia was kind of what I was thinking in my mind when I read the question. So do you mind explaining a little more about that?
So, I'm no expert on the subject, but I do know that a lot of tilapia comes from Southeast Asia. It's often grown in tanks where the fish just swim around, and it's not a clean environment. It's not a good environment for the people who work there. There's nothing about it that we, as people who care about our food source, would consider sustainable. There are a lot of humanitarian issues associated with the way that tilapia is raised, and I don't want to support that in any way, and I also want to support products that are either native to our area or raised in the United States. So if you're choosing between a American raised catfish and a tilapia that could be from anywhere, you should always choose the catfish.
All right, great. That's great information. I actually didn't know that. So thank you. Let's see. Nancy asked, what are the ingredients of community organizer? Is that the name of one of your?
That's the one I've been talking about all night.
Oh, okay.
It starts with onions and garlic and bell peppers, red or green or whatever you have around. And they are sweated down with salt and black pepper. And they're sweated down in olive oil. And then we add tomatoes that you can either get from a can or peel and dice from a fresh tomato. And that is all stewed together with brown sugar and vinegar and a few spices. And what it does is it becomes a flavor base for so many different things. It is the thing that you can add to a bunch of simple ingredients that don't taste like a lot, and it makes it taste like something you spent hours on.
Great. I love the name Community Organizer. That's perfect. Okay, I'm going to share a couple of the things that people put in the chat. That everybody hears them and sees them, because this, like I said, this is one of my favorite parts when we host cookbook authors, is how people the community involved with it and the sharing. So this is from Dave. He said, we made the R-rated onions and mixed a few tablespoons with scrambled eggs and leftover roasted white sweet potatoes for breakfast this morning. So good. I made it much more flavorful and delicious. So I thought that was a great tip to share. Oh, and someone here says they actually made the community organizer this weekend and that it's delicious. And then somebody said, this is off topic, which we love off topic. By the way, this is a last call for questions before I say this. So if you have any more questions, please put them in so that I can go through them and we can make sure that we get them asked before we run out of time. But this is from Wilma, who says this is off topic, but we love your blueberry barbecue sauce, which sounds amazing, by the way. Next to using it on grilled pork, our favorite way to use it is to drizzle it on vanilla bean ice cream with fresh blueberries and pecans. I thought that sounded amazing, so I wanted to make sure everybody got to hear it. And let's see.
I like hearing that. I think that's what I'm talking about. Having something really flavorful, like in your kitchen, that you figure out how to use it in a variety of ways to make something that you eat all the time really like exceptional and surprising. So way to go. Thank you. You get it. All right.
Along those same lines, we have, this was sent to us by, I think it says Toby. I can't quite get the, oh, Robin, sorry. Your cookbook has inspired me, and I will be giving away canned Flavor Heroes for holiday gifts. I love that idea. I've never canned before, but you've inspired me to try, so thank you.
I would just want to say you don't have to can any of this stuff. I think if you give it as gifts, which is like, you saying that to me is like the biggest gift I could have gotten all year. Like that, you know, I'm all about consumable gifts. Like I want to give gifts to people as hostess gifts or holiday gifts that they can eat or drink or rub on their body. I don't care, but I'm all about consumable gifts. And so I think this book is perfect for that, because these are little gifts that can tell people, you know, different ways to operate in their kitchen. So I'm so happy to hear that feedback from you. But and I'm so happy to hear that you have confidently canned them, but they don't have to be canned. Like so many of these have really high acid or sugar elements that make them things that last in your fridge uncanned for months. So yes, I just wanted to make that known.
Well, that's a great idea. I mean, everyone's going to be getting a copy of the book, so I think that's a fantastic idea to give as gifts too. I know I would love to get something like that. Oh, Lisa says that they are actually cooking community organizer right now and they can't wait to try it. And she says, Vivian, have some of your wine.
Don't worry, when I get off this, I'm going to chug the whole thing, because I just started crying here a minute ago.
It's just 2020, I got to tell you. All right, this is again from our friend Ed. He says he has a total non-cooking, non-book tour question. How are all your extended family, particularly your folks, Miss Scarlett and John Howard?
Oh God, my family's fine. You know, my parents are both 80 now, and they've aged a lot in the last couple years, and COVID has, you know, taken some of the joy out of their lives, just like it has everybody else's. But they're hanging around. Hey, my dad last year used to come to our house and sit in the living room every morning as we were getting ready to go to school. And I always complained. I didn't complain about it. I knew it was special. But the fact that he just sat there and watched us struggle to get out the door was frustrating to me. And now this year, he no longer comes in. He sits out in his truck. We walk out and he sits in the parking lot. And so it's been now I realize how special that was last year and the years before. He still brings my kids a sausage biscuit every Friday morning and hangs it on our door. The difference is that now I'm up at 5:45 when he comes, and we have a moment to speak to each other. And my mom is she's good. She's full of free advice for me, right? And believes that everything that I'm doing is wrong. But that's just like, you know, it's almost the most normal thing about all of this. So they're, you know, they're alive and kicking. Thank you, Ed.
Oh, moms. All right, this is from Ron. He says, hi, Vivian. I'm from Eastern North Carolina too. Thanks for what you've done to elevate and explain Southern and especially Eastern North Carolina cuisine. Can we call it that?
I don't know. Did you ever read the book called Deep Run Roots, where I argued that it is cuisine that is equal with Tuscany as Szechuan and Provence? Yes, you can.
This is from Dave. He says, not cookbook related, but are there plans to do more Somewhere South episodes once things get back to somewhat more normal? Please let that happen soon. I have enjoyed both of your shows and your approach to each show.
Thank you so much for saying that. You know, I'm so proud of what we're were able to do with the first season of Summer South. Like my goal for that was to bring the A Chef's Life audience along with me, with the trust that people found in me, and like soften the edges around the way they feel about their neighbors. And I certainly, my goal is to continue doing television, hopefully, and programming that has that same purpose. So stay tuned. I'm not going to say we've made a whole lot of headway thus far, but that is the goal. And I think we can make it happen. And thank you for watching it and seeing the value in it.
All right, and then we have, oh, there are a couple more coming in here. Oh, we just love your shows and books. This is from Dave. Thank you so much for doing these wonderful virtual events. We live near Seattle and may not make it to the restaurants, so this is such a wonderful way to connect. Thank you. That's from Dave.
Thank you. Sorry, Dave. I kind of sucked at the beginning tonight, but I think I've...
Stop it. You were fine. This is just this virtual events landscape is new for all of us. I mean, there's so many pieces that go in on the back end, and it is definitely strange to get your bearings with it. We've been doing them since, I think, May here at the bookstore. We used to do 400 live events a year. So you'd think by now we would have our bearings with it, but I don't either. I feel like every time. Okay, this is from...
On the virtual events?
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
What's different about it for me is that I'm like looking at myself.
Yeah.
So many times, like when I speak in public or even like on TV, like I'm getting kind of feedback from someone, and whether it's an audience or a director or an audio person. And so now it's just like me looking at myself, like spiraling into one positive. So yeah, that's really different from my perspective.
It's strange, even from hosting these perspective. That is very weird. And then the next day to see yourself like all over the internet too, or like this is streaming right now. It's such an odd experience. It is bizarre. Let's see. Somebody said, Michaela, I think I said that right. So happy I received 3 of the new books today, mine and gifts for my son and daughter. Both are great cooks. Thank you so much for that, Michaela. I think they will appreciate the help in preparing meals for their growing families. Thanks for inspiring me. From Sunset Beach, North Carolina.
Oh, thank you.
Cookbooks make amazing gifts. So that is such a smart idea. And in case you haven't heard, like, especially from the book world, shop early right now. Shop local, of course, but shopping early and shipping early is going to be very important this holiday season. There's a lot of issues with book printing where we won't be able to get reprints of things done because there's a printer shortage, which is a whole long story I won't put you guys through. And then on top of that, we do expect worldwide for there to be shipping delays again this holiday season, like we saw in March and April, just based on the sheer amount of shipping that will be taking place this holiday season. Plus, if the vaccine that they've been promising does come through, that is also going to confuse our shipping channels. So we have been told at the bookstore, the earlier you can be shopping for gifts and the earlier you can be shipping them out, the better. You're also going to get better deals earlier, especially right now. So I just thought I'd put that out there. That is, since she mentioned it, it's just such a great idea to be thinking that way right now.
What you're saying, or you may not be able to get it.
Yeah. I mean, we have been told that for certain books, most books actually, when we get our first printing in, that's going to be it until the new year. So when books sell out, we actually won't be able to get them again in time for the holidays, which is very frustrating on top of an already very hard year. But it is what it is, and we're gonna go through with it, keep moving one foot in front of the other. Let's see, we have one comment asking if you're going to be putting those greens on the toast.
He's following up on what I was supposed to do. Yes. Let me heat it up. Yeah.
And then Deborah shared with me that the bad thing about virtual events like this is that we all can't enjoy the aroma of your cooking, which is so true. That looks like it smells amazing.
The idea is you have this beautifully, pan toasted toast with cheese melted on top, and then I have just simmered this kale with the community organizer. And if I were sitting down to eat right now, I would just put this. I mean, I guess I can put it right on top of here, right here, and eat that with a knife and fork. And so it feels like a cheesy steak with a lot of tasty, bright and deep ingredients on top. So that's how I would eat it, but I put it on a plate.
Maybe. Okay, and this is from Cindy. Oh, and by the way, that was from, I don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's like a username, CSUMME, says thank you for showing the kale on the toast. Let's see, we have one more comment, it looks like here from Cindy. She says, I met you in Chicago at Anderson's during your Deep Run Roots tour. And I so appreciate how you have always inspired me and have shared your true self. So I just thought I'd share that. It's a nice comment. And then I think we are out of questions. I have one more for you that I always like to ask before we all go for the evening. And that is, you've touched a little bit on the fact that you're going to be opening back up one of your restaurants and that you have a goal to get more television episodes made. But what's next? What have you got coming up over the next year?
Well, I'm getting ready to reopen the restaurant. I'm opening a restaurant in Charleston in the first week of December, I believe, or maybe the second, called Lenore. I have 2 9-year-olds that I would love to be a big part of their lives, and I think that's enough, right?
Yeah. You definitely seem to like a full plate. So yes, that's definitely enough. It's amazing how you got it all done, especially with everything else going on right now. And I don't know if you e-learn where you live, but that's where it is here. And it's difficult right now to get it all done. So good luck with everything. That's amazing. And thank you for sharing this book with us and this recipe with us. And this is just a perfect time for a great cookbook like this. I think we all need this heading into the holidays and what is going to be, a rough winter. So I just want to thank you again for being here tonight. Thank everybody for being here tonight. Thank you for your support of small business and an independent bookstore. And I hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you all for having me.
All right. Good night, everybody. Stay safe out there.
You be my mom now.